It was 3:17 a.m., and the Afghan valley was shrouded in darkness, the only light coming from a pale crescent moon glinting off jagged rocks. A biting wind tore through the canyon, carrying the scent of dust, smoke, and gunpowder. Deep in the valley, a small team of U.S. Army Rangers huddled behind shattered walls of an abandoned outpost. Their mission had been routine, a recon sweep to locate enemy strongholds, but routine had dissolved into chaos in the span of an hour. Lieutenant Jackson crouched low, teeth chattering as he tried to suppress the rising panic of his team. His hand hovered over the radio. "Mayday, mayday, we're surrounded. Request immediate support." His voice cracked slightly, betraying the fear he tried to hide. Gunfire echoed from the opposite ridge, each burst a reminder of how exposed they were. The enemy's numbers were overwhelming and their tactics ruthless. At a forward operating base hundreds of miles away, Major's eyes were glued to a laptop screen. Satellite feeds showed the exact location of the Rangers, pinned between two enemy battalions. She ran her fingers over the keyboard, marking enemy positions, calculating odds, and mentally preparing herself for the impossible. Every second that passed without support increased the Rangers' risk of being overrun. Then a single encrypted transmission appeared on the network. No call sign, no voice, only coordinates blinking on the map, his brow furrowed. Whoever sent this wasn't supposed to be there, or maybe they were someone she had been told didn't exist. Back in the canyon, the Rangers' situation deteriorated. Explosions from mortar fire shook the ground, sending clouds of dust and debris into the air. His team ducked instinctively, scanning for any sign of reinforcements. That's when it happened. A sharp, precise shot rang out from somewhere high above, followed by a sudden thud. One of the enemy machine gunners collapsed, slumping over his weapon. Froze. No one on his team had taken that shot. A second shot followed. Another enemy fell silently, their rifle clattering against the rocks. "Did you see that?" whispered into his comms. The Rangers' radios buzzed with confusion. The enemy was faltering, but no one could see who or what was behind it. Shadows flickered across the ridges, but every time they tried to pinpoint the shooter, it vanished. Leaned closer to her screen, heart pounding. Whoever this sniper was, they were methodical. Every shot was surgical, every kill calculated. They weren't just providing cover, they were reshaping the battlefield. The Rangers, exhausted and bloodied, felt a fragile surge of hope. They didn't know the sniper's identity, and they certainly didn't know if they were an ally or a ghost from the past. Yet with every precise shot that echoed through the valley, their chances of survival edged upward. Night was fading, the horizon tinged with gray. The canyon seemed alive with anticipation, as if the cliffs themselves were holding their breath. Then, from somewhere unseen, another shot rang out, taking down an enemy sniper perched above the ridge. The Rangers exchanged wide-eyed glances. Whoever was out there wasn't just helping, they were hunting, and the hunt had only just begun. Clenched his jaw, whispering to his team, "Stay sharp. Whoever this is, they're the only reason we're still breathing." And from the shadows, the quiet sniper watched, every movement precise, every heartbeat silent. The valley was about to witness something it would never forget. By the time dawn's first light brushed the jagged peaks with pale gold, the Rangers were barely holding it together. Lieutenant crouched behind a jagged rock outcropping, blood streaking down his arm from a grazing wound, heart hammering in his chest. Every second brought a new threat. The enemy, now aware that someone, or something, was cutting down their forces, was growing frantic, firing wildly, throwing grenades into their positions. His team was pinned down, trapped in the narrow canyon and low on ammunition. Private Daniels' hands shook as he tried to reload, his knuckles white. "We're going to get overrun," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the distant gunfire. Then another enemy soldier collapsed, not screaming, not stumbling, just dropped silently, a precise shot through the chest. His head jerked up. The sniper, they're still out there. "Do you see that?" he whispered urgently into the comms. Confusion rippled through the Rangers. I don't see anyone," one replied. Another added, "It's like the shadows are alive." From her base hundreds of miles away, Major could barely keep up. The feed showed the enemy commander frantically moving his troops, trying to identify the source of these impossible kills. But the sniper anticipated every move, predicting attacks before they even happened. Felt a chill run down her spine. This was no ordinary marksman. The enemy attempted a coordinated charge up the ridge. The Rangers braced for impact, adrenaline surging through every nerve. And then another shot. A single, clean hit, taking out the lead enemy soldier before he could even fire. One by one, the attackers fell, each shot coming from a direction that seemed to defy logic. His mind raced. Whoever this sniper was, they were working with a precision and foresight that almost seemed preternatural. The ranger in him knew instinctively, this is the kind of skill you can't teach. Smoke and dust from nearby explosions clouded the valley floor. The rangers ducked and rolled for cover as shouts and gunfire filled the air. They had no idea where the sniper was perched, and yet somehow he, or she, was always a step ahead of the enemy. It was as if the unseen force was watching over them, pulling the strings of the battle like a conductor orchestrating a deadly symphony. Suddenly, the enemy commander barked orders to bring in heavy weapons. Mortars rumbled in the distance, sending a cloud of debris over the canyon floor. The rangers ducked instinctively, but another perfectly timed shot took out one of the mortar teams before they could fire again. Private Daniels looked at with wide, incredulous eyes. How is that possible? Didn't answer. He couldn't. He was too focused on surviving, on keeping his team alive while this mysterious guardian continued to dismantle their attackers. From her laptop could track the snipers' movements as they shifted along the ridges. One ridge, then another, always staying just out of sight, always lethal. Whoever they weren't just assisting. The sniper was hunting, and every move was deliberate, calculated, perfect. As the sun rose higher, washing the valley in harsh light, the rangers felt something they hadn't in hours: hope. Each enemy soldier felled by the sniper's rifle meant one less threat, one more chance to make it out alive. Yet the question gnawed at them: who is this phantom, and why have they chosen to intervene? His gaze swept the ridges, scanning for any sign of movement, but the sniper remained elusive, unseen, almost unreal. And with every precise shot that rang through the valley, the rangers realized that survival was no longer just about courage or training. It was about the mysterious force that had entered their battle. By midday, the valley was a war-torn nightmare. Smoke curled from scorched earth and shattered rocks, mingling with the metallic scent of blood and gunpowder. The rangers, crouched behind fragmented walls and crumbling outposts, were exhausted, both physically and mentally. Every muscle ached, every breath felt like a fight, and yet through the chaos, the quiet sniper continued their deadly work. Lieutenant's eyes scanned the jagged cliffs above, every ridge a potential threat. But now, strangely, they were also his hope. Enemy soldiers attempted to regroup, creeping along the canyon's edges, but one by one, they fell to shots that came from nowhere. "It's like they know exactly where we are," whispered Private Daniels, eyes wide, trembling. It's impossible." Didn't answer. He couldn't. Every instinct screamed caution, but also reverence. The sniper wasn't just skilled, they were preternaturally precise, moving almost like a ghost across the ridges. Occasionally, a fleeting glint of a scope lens would catch a stray sunbeam, but before the rangers could pinpoint it, the sniper vanished again. Hundreds of miles away at the forward operating base, leaned closer to her laptop. She could track enemy movements and infer the sniper's positions through the dead zones, the gaps left by eliminated threats. But even she couldn't predict exactly where the ghost would strike next. Every hit was perfectly calculated, taking out high-value targets, crippling the enemy's coordination. The enemy, growing desperate, tried to flank the rangers through a narrow ravine. Bullets whipped past like angry hornets, and explosions tossed clouds of debris into the air. His team ducked behind the nearest cover, hearts hammering in their ears. And then, a single shot rang out, perfectly timed. The enemy leading the charge collapsed, followed by the next, as if invisible strings guided the sniper's hand. Felt a strange mix of awe and fear. Whoever this was, they weren't just helping. They were controlling the battlefield, predicting enemy movements as if reading the battle itself. His team's survival, he realized, depended entirely on this phantom's skill. From the valley floor, shadows shifted unnaturally. Every ridge, every rocky outcrop could hide the sniper, and yet the quiet precision of each shot betrayed a presence that was almost ethereal. And his team exchanged glances, an unspoken understanding passing between them. We are not alone. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the opposite side of the canyon. The enemy commander's reinforcements had arrived, armed with heavy rifles and mortars. Panic threatened to overtake the rangers as the canyon seemed to close in on them. But before the enemy could press their advantage, another shot rang out from above. A mortar team was decimated before it could fire, their bodies hitting the rocky ground with a terrifying silence. The rangers stared in disbelief. Whoever the sniper was, they were hunting, not merely defending. Each shot was deliberate, each target chosen with precision that went beyond military training. The realization sent a shiver down spine. This ghost wasn't just a soldier, they were something else. Something lethal, untouchable, almost supernatural. Tapped at her keyboard frantically, cross-referencing past missions, personnel files, and reports of rogue operations. Whoever this sniper was, they had to be highly trained. Possibly too highly trained for anyone to believe they were still alive. As the sun climbed higher, painting the valley in harsh light, the Rangers allowed themselves a sliver of hope. Each enemy soldier felled by the unseen sniper meant a slightly better chance of survival. But still, questions burned. Who are they? Why are they here? How many can they take down before the enemy adapts? From somewhere high above, a shadow moved silently along a ridge. A rifle was lifted, a flash of motion caught in sunlight, and then the shot rang out. Another enemy fell, crumpling silently into the rocks below. The sniper was still watching, still calculating, still lethal. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the jagged canyon walls in shades of orange and blood red, the Rangers were on the verge of collapse. Their muscles screamed, their lungs burned, and the weight of exhaustion pressed down like a lead blanket. Every movement required deliberate effort, every glance was a calculated risk. The enemy, sensing their desperation, pushed harder, launching a coordinated assault from multiple angles. Lieutenant crouched low behind a crumbling wall, whispering orders with shaking hands. "Hold the line, don't let them break through." His words barely carried over the roar of gunfire. Around him, the team scrambled for cover, eyes darting across the canyon floor, tracking every shadow. But no matter how many times they scanned, the enemy kept falling before they could reach the Rangers. "Another one," whispered Private Daniels, pointing toward a distant ridge. An enemy sharpshooter had been spotted only for a split second. Then a single shot echoed through the canyon and the enemy soldier crumpled. Daniels' jaw dropped. "It's impossible." Monitoring the battle from the forward operating base, realized the sniper had moved closer. Satellite overlays showed subtle movement along ridges previously controlled by the enemy. Whoever this sniper was, they were not just assisting. They were hunting, calculating each kill, predicting the enemy's next move with inhuman precision. From their hidden vantage point, the sniper's glint of a scope caught the dying light of the sun. One by one, the enemy fell. Machine gunners, mortar teams, even high-ranking officers. The sniper neutralized them all without a single misfire. Each shot sent a ripple of fear through the enemy ranks. They began to hesitate, to glance nervously at the shadows, sensing something inhuman stalking them. The Rangers felt a surge of hope, fragile but undeniable. Every fallen enemy was a small victory, every precise shot a lifeline. Team, battered and bleeding, found themselves moving more aggressively, pushing back against the enemy's flanking maneuvers. They weren't just surviving, they were beginning to fight back. Then from the ridge above, another flash. A grenade launcher operator raised his weapon to fire at the Rangers. Before he could squeeze the trigger, a single, silent shot struck him squarely in the chest. The weapon clattered to the ground and the canyon erupted in chaos. The enemy commander shouted orders, but his soldiers faltered. Their coordinated assault was unraveling, dismantled by an unseen hand. Looked up, eyes scanning the ridge, catching a fleeting shadow moving with impossible speed. "Who the hell are you?" he muttered under his breath. The sniper didn't answer. They didn't have to. Their actions spoke louder than words, each kill a message. "You will not survive without me." His fingers hovered over the keyboard as she tracked the sniper's movements. She had cross-referenced decades of military operations, covert missions, and intelligence reports. The sniper's precision and speed weren't normal. They were legendary, almost mythic. Whoever was up there had been trained to anticipate chaos, to strike without hesitation, and to vanish without a trace. The enemy's morale began to crumble. Reinforcements hesitated at the canyon's edge, wary of the invisible force cutting down their men. For the first time in hours, the Rangers allowed themselves to breathe, not fully, but enough to know that survival was suddenly within reach. Yet with dusk falling and the canyon shadows lengthening, the danger was far from over. The sniper was closer now, perched somewhere above the fray, calculating, waiting for the next move. The Rangers couldn't see them, couldn't communicate with them, and couldn't hope to survive without their silent intervention. Whispered to his team, voice low but resolute, "Stay sharp. Whoever this is, they're the reason we're still alive. Don't let them down." And somewhere above in the growing shadows, the sniper watched, every motion deliberate, every heartbeat silent. The valley held its breath, as if knowing that the night was only the beginning, Night had fallen like a curtain over the valley, swallowing the canyon in darkness and cold so sharp it bit through layers of clothing. The rangers' breaths came in ragged gasps, visible in the frigid air. Every shadow seemed alive, every crevice a potential death trap. The enemy, now desperate, pushed forward with renewed aggression, attempting to encircle the rangers completely. Lieutenant gritted his teeth, pressing his back against the jagged rocks. The canyon had become a maze of smoke, fire, and echoes of distant gunfire. Bullets whipped past like angry hornets, forcing the rangers to dive behind whatever cover they could find, rocks, rubble, even the remnants of walls they had once considered safe. Their situation was grim, their ammunition dwindled, and the enemy pressed relentlessly. Then came the whisper-quiet shots. One by one, enemy soldiers fell, their bodies crumpling silently into the shadows. There was no warning, no flash, just sudden, terrifying precision. His team paused mid-fight, eyes wide, scanning for any sign of the mysterious sniper whose rifle had become their lifeline. "I swear someone's picking them off like it's nothing," whispered Private Daniels, his voice trembling. "It's like a ghost." Didn't reply. He had caught fleeting glimpses. A shadow flitting along the ridge, too fast and silent to track, a glint of scope reflecting the moonlight for just an instant before vanishing. Whoever this sniper was, they weren't merely helping, they were dictating the pace of the battle. The enemy commander, now in a full-blown panic, attempted to reorganize his forces. Mortar teams tried to find vantage points, machine gunners repositioned, and flanking squads scrambled through the canyon's tight crevices. But with each movement, another precise shot dropped a key soldier, dismantling the assault before it could even begin. The enemy's morale cracked, their coordination collapsing under invisible pressure. Then chaos erupted. A grenade landed near and Daniels, the deadly fuse hissing. Time slowed. Training kicked in, he lunged for cover, but before he could act, a shadow swooped over him. The grenade detonated harmlessly, the concussive force absorbed by a lone figure who vanished as quickly as they appeared. The Rangers froze, hearts pounding. Whoever this sniper was, they weren't just killing from afar, they were willing to risk everything to protect them. From above, another flash of motion. Enemy soldiers tried to advance along the ridge, only to drop silently one after another. The sniper moved like a phantom, impossible to track, their shots measured, deliberate, and fatal. It was almost as if the enemy itself were being edited out of existence, one frame at a time. Looked at his team, faces pale, bodies trembling yet alive. That wasn't human," he muttered under his breath. "Whoever this is, they're more than a soldier." Meanwhile, watched from the forward base, leaning over her laptop, her mind racing. The sniper's skill was off the charts, almost mythical. They had anticipated the enemy's every move, controlled the battlefield with near-omniscient precision, and now seemed willing to intervene directly when danger came too close to the Rangers. As the night deepened, the enemy commander attempted one last desperate push, sending his elite unit to crush the Rangers' position. But the sniper had already predicted this move. Shots rang out in perfect succession, each kill disabling leadership and coordination. Fear had replaced aggression in the enemy's eyes. They didn't know where to hide, they didn't know where the next shot would come from, and they certainly didn't know who was orchestrating their demise. For the Rangers, survival was no longer about skill or firepower. It was about trust in the unseen, faith in the quiet guardian who moved like a shadow along the ridges above. Each fallen enemy was a lifeline, each precise shot a promise that they might live to see another sunrise. And somewhere in the darkness, the sniper watched, calculating, waiting, lethal in every heartbeat and completely unseen. By midnight, the valley had become a haunted battlefield. Smoke and dust lingered in the freezing air, mingling with the metallic scent of blood and spent gunpowder. The Rangers, battered and bleeding, had somehow survived wave after wave of enemy attacks, but exhaustion weighed heavily on every one of them. Their muscles trembled, their minds teetered on the edge of fear, and every shadow seemed alive with danger. Lieutenant crouched behind a broken wall, eyes scanning the ridges as the enemy desperately tried to regroup. "They're not stopping," he muttered. "No matter how many we take out, they keep coming." But even as he spoke, another flash lit the horizon, and a single, perfectly aimed shot dropped an enemy officer who had just emerged to issue orders. Private Daniels swallowed hard, staring at the silent carnage above. It's like they know exactly what we're thinking, what we're doing." From her forward operating base, Major was monitoring the battlefield with a mounting sense of awe and disbelief. She had cross-referenced the sniper's movements, shot patterns, and precision with decades of military records, covert operations, and personnel files. The realization hit her like a thunderclap. This was no ordinary operative. This was someone believed to have died years ago on a classified mission, a ghost from history whose skill had become legendary. "Phantom," she whispered, almost to herself. They appeared in classified files for a Delta Force operative who had vanished during a high-risk operation in a hostile zone. Officially, they were listed as KIA, but the sniper's performance in this valley proved otherwise. Phantom wasn't just alive, they were operating at a level that blurred the line between myth and reality. Back in the canyon, the enemy commander realized the tide had irrevocably turned. His elite units were falling one by one to a sniper who predicted their every move. Panic replaced strategy, fear replaced discipline. The remaining soldiers glanced nervously at the ridges, searching for a target they could never find. Suddenly, a mortar team prepared to fire on the Rangers' last position. But a single, silent shot struck the lead gunner, and the weapon collapsed before it could launch a single shell. The enemy commander's panic reached a fever pitch as he tried to retreat, only to be eliminated moments later by another flawless shot. The valley fell eerily silent, broken only by the whisper of the wind and the heavy breathing of the surviving Rangers. Couldn't tear his eyes from the ridge where the sniper had been operating. For the first time, he glimpsed a fleeting figure, lean, precise, moving like a shadow. In the moonlight, the faint reflection of a scope caught his eye before the figure melted back into darkness. Every instinct told him this wasn't just a soldier, they were a predator, a ghost, and now the Rangers' only hope. His voice crackled in his earpiece, calm but urgent. "That sniper. There is Phantom. They were Delta Force, believed dead for years. We don't know their motives, but they are exactly why you're still alive. Trust them." Swallowed hard. "Phantom," he echoed, letting the name roll over his tongue. It sounded unreal, almost like a legend whispered in hushed tones, yet the evidence was undeniable. Each shot, each precise kill, each prediction of enemy movement was a message. Phantom was back, and they were in full control of this battlefield. As the Rangers regrouped, taking in the devastation and counting their losses, a new feeling crept over them, something more powerful than fear or hope. Respect, reverence, and a question that burned in every mind: why now, why us? Somewhere in the shadows above, Phantom surveyed the valley, calculating the next move, a ghost in the night who had already rewritten the rules of survival. The first light of dawn barely cut through the smoke and haze that clung to the valley. Broken rocks glimmered wet with morning dew, mingling with blood, dust, and the remnants of a night-long battle. The Rangers were exhausted, each movement felt like lifting lead, but their spirits flickered with the fragile hope that they might survive this nightmare. Lieutenant squinted across the canyon. Enemy remnants were scattered and disoriented, but the threat was far from over. Mortar teams were still hiding behind jagged outcrops. Flanking squads moved stealthily along ridges, and somewhere above, Phantom remained unseen. Could sense the presence of the ghostly sniper, calculating, waiting, poised to strike at the precise moment when survival would hang in the balance. Suddenly, a series of explosions rocked the valley. Hidden enemy squads had regrouped, attempting one last desperate assault. Shouted, "Take cover!" as rocks flew and gunfire rattled across the canyon. The Rangers dove for safety, hearts hammering, adrenaline screaming through every vein. And then another shot. A single enemy soldier dropped mid-step, the rifle clattering from his hands. Another followed, and another. Phantom moved like a shadow, unseen, but orchestrating the battlefield with inhuman precision. Watched in awe and terror as Phantom's shots dismantled the enemy's elite units. High-ranking officers fell before they could issue orders, mortars were neutralized before they could fire, and machine gunners slumped silently. The valley was a chessboard, and Phantom was playing 5 moves ahead. Then it happened. A grenade landed near, rolling dangerously close to Daniels, who froze in shock. Time slowed. Phantom appeared from the darkness like a wraith, diving over and shielding the younger soldier. The grenade detonated harmlessly against Phantom's body. In that single heartbeat, the Rangers realized what kind of warrior they were dealing with, not just a sniper, not just a soldier, but a one-person army. Felt his chest tighten. Who are you?" he whispered under his breath, but Phantom didn't answer. There was no time, and words were unnecessary. Every action spoke louder than any explanation could. Phantom's rifle barked again and again, taking out threats before the enemy even realized they existed. The enemy commander, witnessing his forces crumble, attempted a retreat, but Phantom had anticipated it. Shots rang out from the ridges, stopping the commander and his elite squad in their tracks. Panic exploded across the valley. Confusion reigned. Every soldier on the enemy side was either falling or frozen in fear. His team pressed forward, emboldened, pushing against the surviving enemy with renewed vigor. They moved as one, shielded by the silent presence of Phantom above. And yet, even as they fought, a lingering fear remained. They had no idea what Phantom's ultimate goal was, or how far this ghostly operative would go to complete it. Monitoring from the forward base, keyed in updates frantically. The sniper is finishing the fight, but their pattern, it's almost surgical. Watch for any sudden moves. They're capable of taking risks that no ordinary soldier could survive. As the sun climbed higher, the enemy's resistance finally collapsed. The remaining soldiers scattered into the shadows of the canyon, leaving only smoke, silence, and the shattered remnants of what had been a battlefield. The Rangers, bruised and battered, took in the carnage, hearts pounding, adrenaline slowly fatting. Then in the eerie quiet, caught a glimpse of movement on a ridge. Phantom was there, surveying the aftermath. For a moment, their presence felt almost unreal, more myth than human. And just as quickly, the ghostly sniper melted back into the mist, leaving the Rangers alive but with more questions than answers. Lowered his weapon, shaking. That wasn't just a sniper, that was a legend. By mid-morning, the valley lay in a strange, eerie quiet. Smoke curled lazily over shattered rocks, mingling with the acrid scent of spent gunpowder. Enemy soldiers had retreated or had been eliminated, and the Rangers were left to process the aftermath of a night that felt more like a nightmare than reality. Lieutenant lowered his weapon slowly, scanning the terrain. Broken bodies, scorched earth, and the remnants of desperate firefights filled the canyon. The once dangerous ridges, where death had lurked in every shadow, now seemed almost peaceful. Yet peace was fragile. Every soldier knew it could be shattered in an instant. Is it over?" whispered Private Daniels, his voice hoarse, trembling. He glanced around, still expecting death to emerge from the cliffs. Nodded slowly but didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on a ridge above, where a shadow had been moving earlier, an impossible, fleeting figure. Phantom. The ghostly sniper had been their salvation, their unseen guardian and their most terrifying ally. Yet now, in the soft light of dawn, there was no trace of them. His voice crackled through the comms, calm but awestruck. "The sniper, the one you've been relying on, they're gone. No tracks, no contact, nothing. That was Phantom, and they're gone as quietly as they appeared." His team gathered around him, exhaustion and relief etched on every face. Bruised, bleeding, but alive, they had survived against impossible odds. And yet there was a lingering unease. Who was Phantom, really? Why had they intervened? And why vanish before anyone could even say thank you? Crouched down, staring at the broken canyon floor. "They didn't just save us," he muttered. "They changed everything. We wouldn't have made it without them." Daniels shivered. It's like they were never really human, like some kind of myth, watching us, guiding us, protecting us, and then disappearing into the shadows. The Rangers silently agreed, a shared reverence passing between them. Phantom wasn't just a sniper. They were a force of nature, a guardian whose motives remained a mystery. And that mystery made them even more powerful, almost untouchable in memory. Continued to monitor the satellite feeds, noting that the ridges Phantom had occupied now lay empty. No signs of extraction, no escape route. It was as though Phantom had walked through the battle like a shadow, rewriting the rules of survival, and then simply evaporated into the mist. Finally stood, surveying the valley one last time. The enemy had been decimated, their morale shattered, their command broken. The Rangers had survived. They had fought, bled, and endured, but the invisible hand that had turned the tide would never be seen again. As the wind swept through the canyon, carrying the echoes of the night's violence, whispered under his breath, "Whoever you are, thank you, and I hope we never meet under fire again." Somewhere high above, Phantom moved silently along a ridge beyond sight, a lone figure among the rocks and shadows. They didn't celebrate, they didn't speak. They simply vanished into the unknown, leaving only the legend behind. A ghostly warrior whose existence was questioned, whose skill was unparalleled, and whose motives remained a mystery. The Rangers slowly made their way back to safer ground, battered but alive, carrying with them the memory of a Phantom who had rewritten fate in that canyon. And in the quiet aftermath, one thought lingered in every mind. There are some warriors who exist beyond life and death, and Phantom is one of them.